Welcome to the shop, my friend. Steve here at SKS Props, and in today's build video I have a project that's been on my list for quite some time, a Hellboy mask, but specifically with that iconic comic book style to it. Now, those of you that have followed me for a while know I absolutely love like cel-shaded type paint jobs, especially on my Borderlands props and my Dragon Ball Z Saiyan armor, and I thought this would be a fantastic opportunity to once again flex those painting techniques. Now, this mask is of course made all out of my HD foam, which you can find over at Blick Art Materials, and that's a fantastic way to support this channel. And if you would like to build one of these yourself, I of course have free PDF files available over on my website that you can download to build right along with me. So I want to show you what it takes to put this Hellboy mask together and paint it. So let's go ahead and get started. Matching the simplified shapes that are seen in the comics, I was able to create a prototype. This was then used to create the final templates for the mask. Starting with part A, I'm going to transfer this piece onto some 6mm HD foam with a pencil. I go ahead and cut out the main shape using a hobby knife as well as the eyes. For under his cheeks, I'm going to transfer part B onto some 6mm foam 2 times. These pieces, once cut out, can be rounded over by hand and then using some Bob Smith superglue are attached to part A. Here you can see I just need all 3 pieces to line up straight across the bottom. Using some 10mm foam, I can now transfer and cut out part C, which is going to make up the lower jaw. I do a rough fit of where this piece is going to go, and I transfer that on with a pencil. Then I can apply some contact cement to the foam. Pressing part C onto the foam then gives me a residual of the contact cement, letting me know exactly where I need to apply more. Once the adhesive had dried, I can then glue part C onto the face. To make up the top of his skull, I'm going to transfer part D onto some 6mm foam 2 times. After the pieces have been cut out, I can then use my hands to slightly round them over. Weldwood contact cement is once again used along the main edge, and after the adhesive had been allowed to dry, these 2 halves can be firmly pressed together. To glue the darts, I switched over to some Bob Smith superglue. I used a smooth sanding drum to knock down all the seams and then switched over to my heat gun to seal the foam. A mixture of Weldwood contact cement and Bob Smith superglue was used to adhere this piece above the eyes. Now this step isn't necessary, but I took part E and I transferred onto some 2mm foam. My thought was to use this piece to help hide that central seam. Part F is going to make up his eyebrows, and this is going to be transferred onto some 6mm foam. Once cut out, this piece can be glued straight across right above his eyes. Now I can take part G, which is going to make up his nose. 2 pieces of 10mm foam are sandwiched together, then part G can be traced on and cut out. To hide the central seam, I'm going to cut a strip of 2mm foam and glue that to the piece. Part H is going to make up his nostrils, and these pieces can be cut out of 10mm foam. These pieces can be glued to either side of the nose, but before I glue the nose on, I want to make the eye bags first. Part I is going to make the eye bags, and this is traced and cut out of some 2mm foam. I glue these parts under each eye using some superglue. I round over the nostrils just a little bit with a sanding drum, then I can heat seal the entire piece. Now I can mark and attach the nose, making sure to line it up exactly with the middle of the face. For the facial hair on the chin, I take part J and I transfer that onto some 2mm foam. This piece is marked and glued on, making sure I leave just enough foam to wrap around to the bottom. Part K will make up his ears, and these pieces will be cut out of some 6mm foam. Before the ears are glued on, I mark part L, which is going to make up his sideburns. This will let me know how far in the ears need to come. Part L is cut out of some 4mm foam 2 times. And as you can see, the front of it attaches to his face, but the top strip goes behind his ear. Since we don't have a lot of detailed pieces, this layering of the foam gives it some dimension. To make up the base of the cut-off horns, part M is going to be traced on some 10mm foam. Now notice I glued and stacked two pieces of 10mm foam together and then cut them out as one. Now the two circles can be marked and glued to either side of his forehead. To make up his eye, I'm going to take part N and transfer that onto some 4mm foam. This piece is going to be glued to the back of the mask, but it's going to leave just enough space to look out underneath. To seal and prep my foam, I'm going to be using Plasti-Dip. After the Plasti-Dip had cured, I could then spray the mask with some Krylon Red Oxide Primer. This is going to make up the base layer for Hellboy's skin tone. Next up, I'm going to paint on some Liquitex Heavy Body Cadmium-Free Red Medium. This paint is watered down and applied with a 1-inch mop brush, and then a hairdryer is used to speed up the dry time. For layer number 2, no water is added, and I start to highlight areas like the cheeks, the jaw, the brows, and the horns. The color shift here is subtle, but you can definitely tell it's there. Next, I'm going to use some Liquitex Mars Black to paint his sideburns and his facial hair. Now technically you could just leave the mask here, but I want that iconic comic book look. So I start referencing all the comic books that I have to see where Mike puts shadows under the horns and on his face. Now a lot of the shadows that are on here are going to be subjective, so you don't have to necessarily follow what I'm doing. If you would like more or less shadows on your mask, then feel free. I also notice how Mike shades adding these small triangles in certain areas. And of course it wouldn't be a Mike Mignola illustration without tiny little lines here and there. To help distract from that central seam, I decide I'm going to shade the upper half of his skull. And as you can see, the pigment of the Mars Black covers over the cadmium red really well. Now I'm just going to add some more detail and structural lines here and there, so feel free to sit back and enjoy the painting process. And I will say the hardest part about painting this piece was adding some detail lines, but not too many. I really wanted it to reflect that comic book style. For his eyes, because yellow is a hard color to cover, I'm going to start by using some Liquitex unbleached titanium. Now I can add some Liquitex Yellow Medium, and you can see how that titanium underneath really helps him pop. To see, I'm going to be looking out underneath the eyes, so I'm going to glue on some black chiffon fabric. The fabric does two things. It allows me to see out while others can't see in, plus the black around the eyes matches the art from the comics. To attach the mask, I'm going to use one of my tried and true methods by using some 3/4 inch nylon elastic and 3/4 inch tri-glides. This method will allow these straps to be adjustable but also comfortable. A block of 1-inch upholstery foam was then hot glued to the middle of the forehead. And with that in place, this mask is complete. So you all can see the steps that I took to put together my own custom comic book style Hellboy mask. And again, if you want to build your own, I have free PDF files available over on my website. Download those and build right along with me. And if you are building any of my builds or using some HD foam, be sure to tag me at SKS Props on Twitter and Instagram because I want to see your creations. Until next time, build your best with the best HD foam.